Movies with Mark.
Oh!
I'm
Oh, jeez, I didn't see you there.
Vision Goo. I am Mrs. the Mark.
Mrs. the Mark.
Oh! I missed the mark.
You.
I missed you, Mark. But not this week because we went to see both of these movies together.
Yes. Yeah. So,
I got to see movies. What?
Yeah, this is
I got to
a
see movies.
this is a rare occasion on
Oh, it's not both of them.
this is a rare occasion on Movies with Mark where the usual format of this is that I go see the movies and then I tell my lovely wife about them, and then she hates them. And
I
now
don't hate all of them.
Not all.
Maybe you're just doing a
I'm a-
bad job of describing
maybe
them.
I'm just a bad job.
Maybe you're bad at that.
We'll
That
see
wouldn't
now.
be good, would it?
We'll see now because you've actually seen both of the films we're talking about this week.
Both of them films.
Both. It's a rarity.
Yes.
So I'll get the introduction out of the way quick. My name is Mark Ferson, movie critic for Moviespoon.com, movieswithmark.com, and TwinCitiesGeek.com. And today we are going to be reviewing two genre films that I was looking forward to, especially this month. We're going to be reviewing Steven Spielberg's Ready Player One, based on the Ernest Cline novel, and we're going to be reviewing Wes Anderson's new animated film Isle of Dogs, written by Wes Anderson as well. So, since you've seen these two, which one would you like to start with first?
Well, we watched Ready Player One first, so we can do that one first.
Okay. Yeah, so yeah, Ready Player One, based on the book by Ernest Cline, which
We both read.
we both read, but it's been a while since we've read the book. But because before the movie started, you and I were talking about kind of about what we remember from the book, and
Yeah.
we didn't really remember much. And then I saw.
I remember quite a bit, but I remember that they didn't adapt it to be quite like the book, but that's
Yeah,
okay.
what we were mentioning, we didn't remember stuff at first, but then once the movie started up,
Yeah.
we immediately started remembering a lot of the stuff from the book. That
Yeah.
this event isn't quite like that event.
Like that's not how that went. That's
No.
not how he got that key.
Mhm. Well,
That's not how they did that.
yeah.
That's not when he met Ogden.
Well, so we might as well set it up for the uninitiated here. So the film takes place in the year 2044, where the world is basically a dump. People stack trailers on top of each other, and everybody retreats into the Oasis, which is pretty much VR chat now.
And those stacked up trailers are what the trailer parks are called, the stacks.
The stacks.
In
Yeah.
Columbus, Ohio.
Mhm.
That's where the story takes place. In the slums of Columbus, Ohio.
The slums.
In the trailer park.
Which apparently is conveniently located where all this this VR craze began for the big company of the Oasis.
Was it Brand something Games? I can't really remember.
Something like that. Yeah, it's like what was his name? Like Halliday.
Yeah, but
Yeah, it's
that's not the
Halliday.
name of their company. Halliday was the guy, though.
Yeah.
The Jobs-esque character, although he's like a mix of Jobs and Gates.
Yeah.
But they have something where they compare him to Jobs on like a magazine cover or something too.
Oh sure,
but-
yeah. You can see bits and pieces of different like entrepreneurs there who rose up and became these giants of the tech industry, but they've got a little bit of a hidden past that they've kind of kept hidden from most of the world that they divulge into.
He sort of dressed like Jobs. And
Yeah.
I recognized the actor, and then I'm like, Mark, was that the guy who did the BFG?
And at first
Mark's
I didn't
like,
think
no, that's not him.
I
I'm
didn't
like,
think at first,
I
but
think it is.
but then and then I thought back like that is it's Mark Rylance from
Yes.
because he disappeared into the BFG and he disappeared into the Spielberg's other film Bridge of Spies, so I guess he just hangs around Spielberg films and just pops in there now.
And his in-game counterpart, like, the face looked like the BFG to me, too, and he was doing a similar voice for that character. So.
Yeah. Kind of looks like him now.
Now that you think about it more.
Yeah. But so he's the tech giant, and he has essentially bit the dust. And once he's died, he's decided that who am I going to give the company to? Well, I'm gonna give it to one lucky gamer who can find all 3 of my golden tickets. Sorry,
To find the
keys,
Easter egg.
keys. Yeah, Easter eggs.
Gotta find the Easter egg.
Gotta find the Easter eggs in the game, because if you find them all and you unlock the cryptic clues, then you get the keys to the Oasis.
Yes, we get it. It's a Willy Wonka thing.
Yes.
That's the comparison you were drawing.
Well, even in the trailer, they pretty much play the that one Wonka song there at a different
Willy
tone.
Wonka! Willy Wonka! No, that's the song that our kids always sing.
Yeah.
Which song are you talking about? Pure Imagination?
Yeah. Pure Imagination, like a slower version, you know, as they tend to do for these trailers.
Pure Imagination is already a slow song. Just shaking Mark this year.
Well, you make it a little bit slower, and you put on like different instruments on it, you know. So it doesn't look as obvious. So, there are good guys and bad guys after the keys. The good guy is your unlikely hero, the 18-year-old Wade, who lives in the trailer park, and you decide that, expert gamer, I'm going to be the one who's going to find the keys.
Well, and since it's a movie, they changed Wade from being like an overweight kind of loser to a more attractive actor, of course.
Yes.
Actually. And they cut out all his, like, get buff sequences and mature sequences.
Yeah, you can. Yeah, the one big thing about this movie is that it really focused. Like 2/3 of this takes place inside the virtual world of the Oasis, which is completely computer generated. So we don't spend as much time in the outside world, and we don't get to focus as much on kind of like the finer aspects. Although we do delve a little bit into them as the film goes on.
Although I noticed they gave a lot of the growth that that he had in the book.
Yeah.
To the other character, to Artemis.
Mm-hmm.
I forgot her real name. Samantha.
Samantha.
That's it.
Yep.
They gave a lot of it to Samantha, and I think they even took some of the surprise about H out and gave it to her too.
Yeah.
Which I thought was weird.
Well,
So
kind of shifted it around here.
they just gave her way more to do than she had in the book, because she didn't have nearly as much in the book.
Yeah.
She was just closer to being the romance angle in that. But
And I kind of get that, because they wanted to...
no, I understand it too.
Yeah.
Like, okay, so, with Murder on the Orient Express, I bitched to no end with how horrible it was adapted, but that was largely because they changed things, but in a way that made it even more boring than it would have been otherwise. They made it feel long, even though they consolidated 2 characters, cut things out, and made Poirot into an action character, which he's not.
Yeah, much
So,
different film, that one, yeah.
this is like the most athletic-looking Poirot I've ever seen.
For action scenes.
Can you imagine David Suchet's Poirot trying to do an action scene? He'd probably start wheezing halfway through. Because that's how Poirot is. But I digress. Ready Player One, I do not feel that way about. Although they diverge heavily from the source material. They do it in a way that makes it work better for a movie. In ways that it wouldn't have worked otherwise if they had left it the way it did in a book. It wouldn't translate to screen very well.
Yeah. And this this movie's been in the works since even before the book came out.
Oh wow, really? I knew it had been in the works since around the time we read it, but I didn't know that.
Well, yeah. By the time the book was starting to get kind of like rave reviews and everyone was talking about it, they were immediately talking about adapting it into a film, and the rights were immediately being bought up. And that's the cool thing is though this film does feel like it was made with kind of like the same desire that Cline had.
But he wrote it.
Part
of it, at least.
Yeah, because
he was co-writer of the screenplay. So
yeah, because he co-wrote the screenplay with Zach Penn, who was like his nerdy partner in crime. If you don't believe me, watch. There's this little documentary called Atari Game Over, where essentially, if I remember correctly, they both drive around the country in a DeLorean at one point.
Yeah. So they they could keep the feel of it, even though they changed parts of the plot, some of the way the characters are developed.
Yeah.
And they changed the references from majority 80s references to 80s, 90s, and 2000s.
There's even some 70s in there.
Oh, yeah. But before they were mostly just 80s.
Yeah.
In the book, it was mostly 80s.
Well, I think that was almost kind of like Klein's way of just kind of
Scooping in all generations.
well, in the book I think it was to narrow his focus because like what do I love? Well, I mainly love stuff from the '80s, so I want to kind of make this kind of like like classic type story from the '80s, something like like War Games or Cloak and Dagger, stuff like that. So I think he was aiming with that, but then I think when Spielberg got involved, he's kind of like oh man, Spielberg, he's got all this pull. He can get us all these toy chests of all these franchises, and we can dump them all into this film.
Like King Kong and Godzilla, and although there was a type of Godzilla already in the book, but this other Godzilla wasn't. And Batman flipping everywhere, man.
You gotta flex that IP.
Batman characters were everywhere in this one in the back,
Oh, it's a pop culture bonanza in there, man. I mean, it's gonna be like Roger Rabbit. You're gonna want to freeze frame like every frame of this because there's so many crowd scenes and there's so much stuff packed in there. Like you'll see like Hello Kitty and Overwatch characters and Chun-Li and abundance. And the film also it focuses heavily on them. It takes the time out to like show off everyone's like pop culture trivia at some points.
Yeah, that was a big focus in the book because part of finding the clues and everything and the keys and whatnot to be able to get the egg was that they had to study this man, and he was obsessed with 80s pop culture, at least in the book, and then expanded upon in the movie, so that they needed to obsess over it to be able to figure things out as well.
Yep.
So
now for Wade and his kind of the merry band of adventurers, it's easy because they've been stooped in this for so long, and they adore the 1980s and every little bit of geeky culture that's come before that. But the bad guys,
Sorrento and the Sixers.
Yep.
Which I don't think they say in the movie, but in the book it is a phone company. So
yeah.
I don't know if that's important to know or not, but there is also an important thing that they don't really emphasize why they have the loyalty centers in the movie, but in the books they are. If you go into debt and you don't pay your bills, they send you to these loyalty centers, which were made way worse in the movies than they were in the book. Actually,
they do make a few kind of like yeah, but they make kind of like a few like passing remarks saying about like I've heard about people going to debt here and they wind up here.
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah. So they reveal enough that they're an evil company and they really want to win this game, and because their boss Sorrento, played by Bill Mendelsohn, he's not up on pop culture, so he's basically hired an entire division to both play the game and study up on everything from like John Hughes movies to Millennium Falcon,
which is kind of funny to watch, really.
That's hilarious because it's kind of like oh you fake geeks, and he's trying so hard to stoop himself into this world because they have that great scene where his master plan is to sell ads all over the Oasis. Ooh.
I know, right? It's like, if we win this, we can cover more of the player's vision with all these things. I left my glass of water in the kitchen. I can see it from here. I'm going to go grab it. I'm going to need this.
Okay.
You keep talking.
So so Mendelsohn is grabbing together, trying to snatch up these keys as quickly as Wade can. So it's a race against, the classic adventure of, David and Goliath. The big billionaire is going to be bested by the meek little kid who knows all about pop culture.
He's not a little kid.
All right, it's like, well, I guess
he's not even close to being a little kid. There is a little kid in it.
He's 18-year-old.
There is a kid in there.
But there is a kid in here because this is directed by Steven Spielberg and it is an Amblin film, so we got to have a little kid in there.
And they seem to have aged up the character to 18, so they didn't have to show him being in school anymore for some reason. Because in the book, he goes to virtual reality school, and that's where he finds the first clue and the first key or something in the book.
Yep.
But it's different in the movie, of course, so that's not a spoiler.
Yeah. Well, it's also kind of there's a few elements here that are kind of expected, for a Spielberg film. Like obviously, with that scene, they rewrote it to be a much grander chase where we could have a lot more pop culture references. Which Spielberg, he's done this with all his films. He's done it with Tintin. He's done it with BFG. And it's like, and it's like a trait of his that, you know, you might get tired with after a while just because they have him, but he does it so well. He always makes him look so beautiful and like so chaotic that there's so, and like I said, you know, so much to see, especially in that chase scene there.
Yeah, I don't know. So I still managed to get bored a few times while watching this movie.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that's just me. You seem pretty entertained the whole time.
Yeah, I like that the fact that they kept the energy up here. That, you know, that with a lot of these references, they treated them like they knew what they were talking about instead of just being kind of passive about them. And I like the fact that they kept this. They took the time to establish, you know, ground rules for Ready Player One. You know, they're the rules that will, you know, eventually be broken, but they set up enough of them where you kind of, you know, believe in this world, and it doesn't just feel just like random crap thrown in VR there. Like, it feels like there's an order to stuff, how everything was laid out. And yeah, it gets a little fantastical towards the end, but, you know, it's a Spielberg adventure, and you want to see it go a little bit out there with you know, finding the grand Easter egg and all of that. So you really want to focus on that.
Yeah, totally movie references the movie. Yeah,
entirely, and
that is all it is.
And your enjoyment of the film is entirely dependent on how much you love geeking the hell out of films.
Which is why I assume they changed how he gets one of the keys, because very few people today probably saw that movie if they're under 30 that they used in that for the reference in the book. So. True,
but there's also, yeah, they do keep in a lot of stuff in there that you kind of think like, man, would kids of the future know that much about the culture from back then to get that? Like the Wade's favorite film is Buckaroo Banzai, which is a great film, but it's very much like, it's not like a huge geek film. It's kind of like a cult film.
Yeah.
That it's it's probably the greatest cult film ever made. But
the reason he knows about it is because they have all this information about Holiday. You know?
Yeah, and they kind of, I don't think they mentioned it in the movie, but they mentioned in the trailer, him saying that, you know, if I could be born in any era, it would have been the 1980s. So kind of trying to live through that point. See, Act 2. Let's see, we got one from Ruby 2.
Act 2 of Deadpool 3 better be all VR, and he has to find the way out.
That'd actually be pretty cool. That would be pretty ridiculous if they have that much access here. Because yeah, there's a lot of stuff that, you know, I personally just like, you know, if you just throw references at the screen, there's no thought behind them, you know, I kind of get bored with them. But I like the fact that there was some gleefulness and some knowing nature to it. Like I dig little stuff in here, like there's a tool they use called the Zemeckis Cube.
Yeah, that was funny.
You spin it the right way and it speeds back time, and it plays the first few bars from Alan Silverstein's score to Back to the Future. And then probably my other favorite great scene is with the
and that was in the book.
That's true. Another scene was in the book, was with the when the Gundam battles the Mechagodzilla. And
yeah, that's giving away too much. I was trying to avoid bringing that up.
Yeah,
don't spoil the movie.
Well, some of that's in the trailer, but I do like.
Why would they put that part in the trailer?
Just to show like look how much crap is in the film.
By the end of the film, though, don't give that much away.
I would just say that
there's got to be some surprises.
Sure. And I like the fact that I think the other thing I like is the musical score there, because like when Godzilla pops up, you can hear the Godzilla theme kind of like slip in to the soundtrack there. So yeah, it's overloading on references abound. You know, this is pretty much like watching like the Roger Rabbit equivalent of like movies and video games. Because it just throws everything at the screen and makes it kind of work in this sort of like, you know, classic adventure story, while at the same time, you know, shoving in everything from like Mortal Kombat and Aliens and Overwatch and Battlestar Galactica and all what have you. And it's also amazing to see the Iron Giant back on the screen after 19 years.
I tell you, you're giving too much away. Don't spoil the movies.
All right. There's not to. Well, some of this is in the trailers and the books, but yeah, not giving too much away, because like honestly, if we were to give away a lot of stuff, we would have to talk about everything that they changed from the book.
Yeah, I'm not going to do that either. But well, also, if you go into a movie and constantly compare it to the book, which is something I fall into doing a lot, it ruins the movie for you.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that's part part of why some things felt slow to me, because things never felt slow to me in the book.
Mm-hmm.
And I was sitting there being like, why did they do that? And, you know, things like that.
Right.
So while I liked the movie, I didn't love it because I was doing that,
Mm-hmm.
you know. So, like, I saw the play adaptation of Matilda, and I thought it was the most boring thing ever, because I read the book and I watched the movie, and I'm like, what the hell is this? You know?
Yeah.
They changed so much of it, it's like unrecognizable. I don't like it.
Do you think if you didn't read the book, you'd have a different perception?
Probably
like that?
Yeah, I think that's usually the case, you know? Although I think Murder on the Orient Express would still be boring as hell, so...
Well, that one's had like previous films before that and television specials, so it's got a lot to live up to.
Exactly.
And that's probably, I think, what the biggest. I will say this, yeah, you know, like they do change stuff from the book, but I think the fact that they have Klein involved, they do maintain what Klein originally wanted with the novel, with the spirit of adventure. With the pop culture overload and just the general geeking out of it.
Well, I think the action in the movie worked too.
Oh yeah.
So I it's not a direct adaptation, but it's a good film.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Well, for having the creator involved, I think it's I think it's more like the type of film he wanted to make as opposed to like the book he wanted. Because I'm assuming like if they came to him, you know, after the book was done, so like what kind of director do you want? It's like Steven Spielberg. It's like, you really want? It's like, yeah, you can do all this. I've seen what he produces, man. I want him.
Well, I mean, Steven Spielberg did Tintin, right?
He did Tintin, yeah.
So Tintin wasn't a direct adaptation either. I haven't read it, but I've, you know, seen the Lost in Adaptation review, and you know, the Dom really likes the Tintin comics. So that was interesting to listen to it, because I actually loved the Tintin movie. Mm-hmm. And I think, wasn't I about 9 months pregnant when we watched that? Like, I was due that week.
Yeah.
But I didn't have her for another 2 weeks or something like that. I don't know.
Yeah, it's snuck
I had
in
it later, but I was like, yeah, I don't know.
It snuck in at Christmas.
Yeah, I think I managed not to like have to go to the bathroom during it too, which was an accomplishment when you're in your 3rd trimester of pregnancy. Mm-hmm. But, that I really enjoyed.
Yeah.
Steven Spielberg does some good movies.
He's
some good adaptations, even if they're not completely accurate. He does it justice, I think.
Yeah. He's actually still going ahead with the Tintin sequel.
Oh, awesome. So. I mean, he keeps it in the spirit of the source material.
Right. I think
that's what I mean.
Yeah, I think that's probably the best thing that Spielberg can do, is he can take these genre pictures and manage to give them that kind of like sense of adventure and charm that you want out of those films. You know, because if he was able to do stuff with that, with, you know, like his TV special Duel, and then stuff with like Jaws, which could have just been like a forgettable creature feature.
Yeah.
He knows how to make it work. So he's, you know, if Spielberg can't make it work, then what you can do? Yeah, that's the good thing, is like Spielberg, he's, you know, especially at his age, I mean,
how old is he these days?
Oh, he's got to be way up there now.
But he's been looking old for a while, so. But
for being that old, I mean, he hasn't lost touch, especially for a film with teenagers and young kids in there. He gets it, you know. He picks up on the lingo. He knows how to stage it. He pays close attention to make sure everything that he's shooting makes sense inside this world, instead of just like, you know, like, yeah, I don't know, what do you kids just throw graphics at the screen, whatever. They like the computers.
Yeah.
It's like, no, he takes the time to like learn this stuff while still having this affinity for it, which is not something you see out of a lot of directors when they get up there. So
true. Should we move on to the Isle of Dogs?
Yeah.
What more you want to say about Ready Player One?
Well, I'll just say this. I mean, there's a lot of division with the film there, and I'll just say this. You know, your enjoyment of it, like I said, it's going to depend on how much you love geeking out over films. You know, if, like with all the stuff I mentioned, if you're big fans of those and you want to see them all mashed up on the screen, Roger Rabbit style, I dug it. I had a ball with it, so I would recommend on that level. But if you're kind of off-putted by nostalgia and references, and you've kind of had enough of kind of like the geeking out culture of the internet, probably not going to dig this. I think you'll dig the adventure more than you will just the general, geek trivia they sling at the screen there.
They had some decent action in it.
I
don't really like action movies, but I thought it was decent.
Oh yeah, the action's great. It's detailed. I mean, the heart of a classic adventure tale is still there. So even if you don't dig on the references, which I just have to warn you, the film is going to stop at several points to test some of these guys' knowledge on it.
Yeah.
But I will recommend, I won't spoil what they reveal, but there is a particular level they go into, which has all the fun of watching your friend watch your favorite movie for the first time.
Huh.
You know this scene, I'm like.
Yeah. And there's some character development with him. I wouldn't say it's very strong character development in the movie, as I think did a better job in the book with that.
Yeah, he was more of a vessel in this film, I think.
Yeah,
so.
Yeah, he's more just the character there for you to insert yourself into in the movie, whereas in the book he actually learns something.
Which is fine. I kind of dig that he's kind of more a vessel for this world that's already huge and expanding with all these different characters. So I thought it worked.
Totally.
So yeah, I really dug the film. So we will move on now to
The Isle of Dogs.
The Isle of Dogs,
which was playing at not one but both theaters in our trendy art house area.
Yes, this is an art house limited release film, so you're gonna have to look around for this. It released limited last weekend, and I think it's just expanding this weekend now. And I hope it does well, because I mean, it's getting a lot of good word of mouth, but
it's totally worth it to see it. I can say that right now. I liked it more than Ready Player One, and like I said, I read the book Ready Player One. So.
Yeah. Well, I think by its credentials alone, it's definitely worth checking out. I mean, it's a Wes Anderson film. Wes Anderson's done some of the most gorgeous looking films of the last 2 decades. Rushmore, Royal Tenenbaums, the Grand Budapest Hotel. He's done them all, man.
Oh, I love. You know what? I kind of want to watch Grand Budapest now.
Oh, who wouldn't?
I love that. I love Ralph Fiennes, although he's kind of awkward in some movies. Or I mean, he makes me feel awkward in some movies. That's maybe a personal problem.
He has a nose. He shouldn't have a nose.
That's not what I meant.
No.
Not what I meant.
No. I'm... So
Not the movie I was referring to.
Oh, okay. Oh, okay.
Red Dragon. He's walking around naked most of that movie.
That's right.
And he was younger and more attractive then too. So now he's going bald. So.
No Ray. No, poor Ray.
What?
Poor Ray.
He didn't look like Voldemort in that one.
No.
I think he still manages to be attractive as Voldemort because they did what they could to not cover up too much of his face and make him look like the boogeyman he is. So.
Oh my.
Because they want people to know they have Ralph Fiennes.
Mm-hmm. Well, you gotta know he's there. So Wes Anderson, he's back to his stop motion animation. Last time he did this was with Fantastic Mr. Fox,
which I never saw.
And what was cool,
but it does look very similar stylistically. But then you can always tell Wes Anderson's style when you're watching one of his movies.
Oh yeah, well, especially with his animation style now, because it's stop motion, and when most people think of stop motion, they think of with the current trend of Leica Studio, which is doing some of the most cutting edge and breakthrough technology with stop motion. And then you have Aardman, which is kind of going more for the the simplistic clay stuff. And Wes Anderson's films, they always have this kind of rustic quality to them, where they always feel like no matter what era it is, they're constantly stuck in the 1960s.
Yeah.
There's always big reels that they record stuff with. There's always black and white television. Everyone's always kind of wearing brown, and there's these boldly colorful sets and.
Moonlight Kingdom was just a beautiful little film.
Yeah, like Moonrise Kingdom.
That's what it was, Moonrise Kingdom.
Yeah.
I knew Moon and was in there. Continue.
That's interesting. Is Anderson has this ability to craft these beautiful little worlds, at least that he's been making in these last few. Like Moonrise Kingdom was entirely on this island that felt like something out of like a little dime store novel from like the 1950s. And then you have the Grand Budapest Hotel, which the whole hotel environment is like a different world. And here, Isle of Dogs, you literally have a different world that he's going to, where he gets to call all the shots here.
It made me sad.
We're having doggies.
The movie Isle of Dogs. Sad things happening to doggies.
Yeah. So essentially, it's supposed to be the future. Supposedly 20 years into the future.
Oh, I didn't even catch that part.
They mentioned it. They mentioned it briefly, just because it's not really worth mentioning. Because this is Wes Anderson's version of the future, where again everyone has big reels and black and white televisions.
Well, I mean, I guess I just took it as like it was another universe and a Japan-esque place.
It's
but
an
not
alternative.
quite Japan, because he wanted to use like the old Japanese style, that really beautiful style for some of the animations.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. It's just the traditional Japanese style, I guess.
Yeah, kind of like the
Or they're dressed in traditional
right. Yeah, kind of
garments and things like that.
Yeah, kind of like the woodblock illustrations from that era and stuff like that.
The really beautiful ones. I don't know.
Yeah.
I think they're gorgeous. And then, then the stop motion as well. But then there was one other type of animation in there as well, I think, or another.
Oh yeah, when
style in there as well.
Yeah, when they shift over to the televisions, which is interesting, they kind of distort them by having them in black and white, and they're kind of they're kind of like not quite like, I don't want to say tween, but kind of like more like After Effects animation they have on them.
Yeah.
So
it worked.
Yeah, there's a lot of neat style in there that he carries over from Fantastic Mr. Fox. Like whenever anyone gets into like a scuffle, it looks like a series of cotton balls going over the screen.
Yeah. They translate some parts of the Japanese, but I think the point is that the dogs can't understand humans.
Yeah.
So that's why they use the distinction of English and Japanese, and then they're speaking English because the tale is told from their perspective.
Yeah, and they lay this out like all in the beginning of the film. They
they say it really quick though. I don't know.
Well, yeah, they have some on-screen text that says like, yeah, look, this story is going to take place in Japan. The Japanese people are going to be speaking their native language. That will not be translated unless, of course, by an English translator or a foreign exchange student. And the dogs will have their language translated to English.
All barks will be translated to English.
All barks will be translated to English. Which they establish that kind of quirky humor immediately.
Yeah.
And also kind of the dark tone. Because they establish that this is like an alternative Japan where dogs have kind of been like looked down upon for all these years.
Yeah, it's like a cats versus dogs thing.
Yeah.
I don't know. I have a cat and a dog. Why the conflict?
It's like they really love cats, and then finally, when the future rolls around and they have this new dog flu that breaks out, they find like, oh, this is a perfect opportunity. Let's kick all the dogs off Japan and just sequester them on the garbage island.
Well, what really bothered me is when they're showing the dog being brought there on this garbage tram or whatever, and then they never take him out of the cage. And I'm like, you gotta take him out of the cage. You gotta take him out of the cage. It's so sad.
First try, they remembered the next ones. I think. So yeah, they via this weird kind of like gondola system, they transport all the dogs over there, and they're stuck on Garbage Island to fend for themselves.
And then one day, the little pilot crash lands.
Yep. Well, there's a lot of people who won't stand for it. One of them is a little boy who's the nephew of the mayor.
And it was his dog that was the first to be dumped off there.
Yep. So he's like, I'm not standing for this. So he builds his own plane and crashes there and goes looking for his lost dog Spot.
He stole the plane.
I think he did.
He stole the plane. And then there's a foreign exchange student with a blonde afro who's kind of funny to watch.
Yeah. So while he's searching for his dog, meanwhile this foreign exchange student.
I don't remember her name.
Her name was Tracy.
Oh, yeah.
Tracy is kind of uncovering the conspiracy back home, realizing that it's wrong to sequester dogs, and there's a formula being brewed, but there might be some silencing going on. So she's going through corkboard of connecting all the dots with this conspiracy. So you have kind of like a side mystery with her, while the boy is kind of having an adventure with a group of dogs that agree to help him.
Yeah.
And the dogs are all like English voiced, and they're voiced by the usual Anderson troupe. You know the bunch, you know Bill Murray, Edward Norton, Jeff Goldblum, and then like a few others that they sneak in there. You know, kind of like F. Murray Abraham and Bob Balaban, and a couple others that are stuck in there.
I think is Scarlett Johansson one of the dogs?
Yes, Scarlett Johansson.
Oh, Tilda Swinton's one of the dogs, and that dog just, I think, is so funny because they call her an oracle, but she's really just watching TV.
That's the great thing. Is like all these dogs, they don't have so much character development as they do have quirky character traits.
I thought it was cute.
Yeah, like because you mentioned like the oracle is a hilarious idea for a dog because he's the only dog who is able to watch and decipher television. So it's seen as like the all-knowing oracle who can understand everything.
Because she watches TV.
And there are other little ones there, like Bill Murray is the one who's always cracking snarky jokes and everything. Jeff Goldblum is the kind of like gossip hound who always begins every conversation with like, "Hey, did you hear the rumor that's going around here?"
Yeah, the one you're starting just now.
The one I just started. So there's a lot of great little dry dialogue in there, as you'd expect from Anderson. And yeah, just there's a lot of great voices they have in there. You know, you have Harvey Keitel voicing the leader of a gang. There's a lot of influence that Anderson draws from for setting up this. Like the entire first act, when we reveal the dogs, it's straight out of like Akira Kurosawa's Seven Samurai.
Yeah.
Just with that first shot where, you know, they see like the pile of trash and they're all like standing apart from each other in the distance on the hill, and you hear that kind of like classic 50s orchestral score start up. You're just like, oh, it's straight out of Seven Samurai, even because they have the reluctant outsider, Chief, played by Bryan Cranston. That's totally out of the Seven Samurai, with that one guy who's like, I'm not gonna help you. I'm not gonna help. Oh, I guess I'll help you.
Follows him around.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's a lot of great surprises like that. You get a lot of amazing shots with. I mean, Anderson's like a master of blocking. I mean, just the way he
was really good.
Positions everyone in a shot, how he sets up the light and the shadows. It's just amazing to watch how he sets up all these scenes, especially when you realize you forget at times that it's stop motion because it seems a lot more streamlined at times with kind of like with the facial movements. There are times where it is obvious.
I don't know. The dogs look really fake to me. I'm sorry.
The dogs look fake too.
Amazing shots of garbage. Yeah.
Actually, yes.
I thought it was funny that whenever they shoot back to Chief while he's still not helping them or whatever, he just starts digging in the garbage.
Yeah, there's not much to do in garbage land. You know, you dig stuff, you fight for food.
You eat garbage.
Which, I won't spoil it, but there's an amazing reveal where they display both how savage the island is and both how droll it is. Yeah. When they're fighting for their lives for food to stay alive. But yeah, like Ruichu just mentioned that amazing shots of garbage. There actually are. This garbage island has a lot of amazing ruins.
Yeah, it does actually, and there's more to the island than garbage, and they have to kind of travel around the island to find this boy's lost dog.
Yeah,
they have nothing better to do, so might as well help him.
It's amazing. They go past like this wheat field next to an abandoned gym. They go across a abandoned power plant. And
there's like a old amusement park.
Yeah.
That was cute with the little boy at the amusement park.
Yeah. There's a great moment where they slow down during an amusement park so that they can have a little bit of fun with the Japanese playground there.
The cute little boy.
Yeah, the boy's pretty cute. Little Atari. There's a lot of great voices, especially like we're mostly to be talking about the dogs because the dogs are
the main characters.
They're the main characters to let loose, but there's also like a few interesting human characters like we mentioned.
Atari's cute and
yeah,
and the oh man, that what is he, a general? He was creepy. He
Yeah.
looked like Lurch or something.
The kind of like creepy butler, like you rang type guy.
Was it General Somo or something like that?
Uh,
Domo? General Domo? Major Domo?
Major Domo.
Major Domo? He was
Yes.
creepy. Ooh.
Yeah.
Give you the willies. And the uncle, of course, and the political opposition was a scientist.
Yeah.
The Science Party.
The Science Party.
Well, I think the uncle had been elected for like 6 terms or something like that, right?
Yep, and he wants to keep it going, so
Yes.
he's gonna play dirty. You know? And also there's a few things that snuck in there I didn't notice. Like apparently the head surgeon there's a surgery scene towards the end.
Yeah.
The lead surgeon is voiced by Ken Watanabe.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, I did notice on the credits that the Japanese voices were. Well, can't say for sure that they're Japanese, but they were certainly Asian-looking names.
They look like
I'm not familiar.
no, they're Japanese names.
They are Japanese.
Yeah, because Major.
I can't be. I don't know a whole lot of names other than Watanabe and a few others.
I don't know, like
or what are
Major.
usual Japanese names.
Yeah, because Major Domo is voiced by Akira Takayama.
Yeah, that definitely sounds Japanese. Yeah.
Not to be confused with Toriyama, the inventor of Dragon Ball. But, yeah, the mayor is played by Kunichi Nomura. So,
Yeah, those sound Japanese names. So
Yeah.
so that was cool because it definitely sounded. I mean, I don't know Japanese so much. I know like a couple of words, but
it sounds
sounded
natural.
It sounded like they were speaking actual Japanese and
Yeah.
that it was normal for them. So that was good.
Yeah, because they're going for trying to create that kind of like Lost in Translation atmosphere.
Yeah,
Where,
I think it worked.
because like it answers, it kind of puts to bed that question of like when they have these animated films about talking animals, it's like can the humans understand or can the animals understand?
Sometimes it seemed like they sort of understood each other, but I don't think it was for word sense.
Right.
They understood sit, and that was it. I think he didn't say sit, he said like the Japanese word, which was what, sitsu or something?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, they kind of get away with it in like a few scenes because they have that one little invention that Atari has that allows him to communicate with the dog. So.
Yeah, and there's like that sad scene when he first gets it.
Yeah.
I don't want to reveal too much, but it was super sad.
Yeah, we'll say this right from the get-go. Like, if you really love dogs and you don't like seeing dogs put in danger,
Don't see it.
I'm not gonna say don't see it. I'm just gonna say be prepared to weep a little bit.
Yeah,
But just to warn on that note, it's not as bad as like something like Plague Dogs.
True, that
It's-
is for certain. Yeah.
Plague Dogs
That's
is like
true.
all the
Yeah.
way down here, and like
Plague Dogs was super sad too.
like Isle of Dogs it's kind of weird. Like Isle of Dogs is kind of like in this weird little median of being kind of like a film for kids and feeling very like a sophisticated adult film.
Yeah, I'm trying to think if I would take her to this. There's that whole thing about, oh, I heard you mated with so and so or something like that. I'm like, what?
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe if she were a little older. There's just some questions you don't want. Just some discussions that you're not ready to get into
Yeah,
with a 6-year-old. So
It's more for kind of like older kids who want to see an animated film that takes a few more chances, that
Yeah.
tries to be a little bit more sophisticated, that
might
tries
make you think a little bit more than your average Disney film.
to have a humor not so easy.
Yeah.
But I like the fact that Anderson, he does keep the humor very kind of droll and adult, but he's still not above taking a little time out to when like there's a scene where Chief is revealing like his tragic and dark backstory, and in between there he picks a tick off someone's face because he saw it and had to get out of there.
Yeah. Hey, you got a tick.
Yeah, you got a tick. I gotta get that off there.
Yeah.
So like the film always maintains this kind of like this neat balance between being that typical Anderson dark and dry humor and also kind of being this very playful adventure about doggies.
Yeah.
Which I mean, not to give too much away, but in case you're worried about it, the film does kind of have a happy ending, but one that's earned, like a lot of Anderson's films. Like, because Anderson's films always kind of feel like they go down into deep, dark places towards the third act, and this film kind of does too. but it also, it brings it all together in the end to kind of, bring more sense to it. Not, I will say it's a little bit more enjoyable than his other films that are kind of a little bit more cathartic towards the end there.
I've never seen a Wes Anderson film I haven't liked.
Oh yeah.
I don't know if any of you have, but I haven't seen all his films either, but I've liked all the ones I've seen.
Yeah.
Royal Tenenbaums, The Grand Budapest, and
Life Aquatic.
I saw that one as well.
Mm-hmm.
Life Aquatic, and then there was another one you mentioned that I've also seen, but I can't think of it. Rushmore?
Rushmore, yeah.
Yeah, that one.
The only one I'd say that I didn't dig as much is probably Bottle Rocket, but
I've never even heard of that one.
That was like his very early one.
Well,
and that was mainly.
Gotta start somewhere.
That's true, yeah, and I can forgive that because that was him kind of trying to find his voice there, and I think he really found it when he got to Rushmore.
Yeah, totally.
So yeah, if you really just want to see Anderson's belt, like Rushmore is probably my favorite Anderson film.
Mm-hmm.
Just because it's, I
think Moonrise Kingdom is probably my favorite. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That was a really sweet film.
And it's mainly because, like, Anderson, he not only makes gorgeous films, but he makes, like, these unorthodox stories.
Yeah.
That you wouldn't imagine for having such an ensemble cast like that.
Well, and original films feel hard to come by these days. I don't know if that's really the case, but it seems all the ones I see advertisements for are adaptations, remakes, and sequels, so
yeah,
to see something that's not just the same as everything else, you know.
Written and directed by
it feels better to watch. I mean, it's more interesting. Novelty is more interesting than the same old thing,
Yeah. It's as long as but like at the end of the day, it matters that there's some intent behind it that he tries. Because like Anderson, he's done adaptations of work, but he still puts his own style, his own flair on that.
Yeah.
And it's the type of stuff that keeps you coming back to it time and time again. So like Isle of Dogs, just by name, it's gonna rise up there.
I liked the other theater's marquee that we saw.
Oh yeah, there's.
It's like an island full of good dogs or something like
good
that.
Good boys.
Or yeah.
Starring a bunch of good boys.
Yeah, a lot of good boys. That's what it was. I can't remember what the other site said now. It was cute.
I think it was like Not to Be Confused with something like that.
Oh, I don't know. But it was cute.
Yeah, there's a little art house theater that always puts up like cute stuff on the marquee for all their films. So. Always cracking jokes, this one.
I love a good sense of humor.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I married you.
Yeah. That'd be true. I would almost say like if you're kind of more like we mentioned how like Ready Player One, if you're a big like geek of like pop culture stuff, you would dig it. I think if you're a big geek of kind of a classic cinema, especially like some of the Kurosawa stuff, you'd really dig like Isle of Dogs. Because there's a lot of moments where I was...
Movie.
Well, which one?
The one you're talking... I didn't mean to derail what you were saying. Continue.
Okay. Well, I was just saying that, I could see, like, a lot of influence there, and then from, like, a few different other films. Like, I noticed there's a scene where Tracy enters the bar to talk with someone, and
I liked that scene. It was cute.
And
it was funny.
Well,
it was funny.
The scene itself is funny because she's talking with a scientist that they reveal her name is Yoko Ono.
That wasn't the funniest part.
Well, I kind of laughed at that part because like Yoko Ono, why would they call it? And then I saw, it's actually Yoko Ono doing the voice.
Oh, really?
Oh, you didn't catch that in the credits?
I didn't catch that. I wasn't looking for that. I mostly what I was thinking was that I thought that the puppet was a really beautiful doll. Or like the character looked beautiful, Well,
because that's one
of the... I was more stuck on that. So.
Yeah, because it's one of the few female puppets that we actually get close-ups on her because she's trying to show that emotion, and it really
pretty
comes
much
through
just those two. But yeah, it was a good one.
But I was noticing...
Voiced by Yoko Ono. That's right.
Yep. But I was noticing when they enter the bar there, there's a kind of like a classic Japanese swing song on there.
Oh, I'm not familiar with Japanese swing music.
Well, it's a fairly old song, but I could have sworn, like, I swear I've heard that before. It's like, oh, that is the song they used in Akira during one of the night scenes.
So it's pretty heavily influenced by Akira, then maybe.
I wouldn't say heavily influenced.
Decently influenced.
I think they're like.
I like Akira.
Kind of like with the Kurosawa influence. I think he takes like bits and pieces here because you can kind of see that with the Japanese setting they have here. It's kind of in the future. Kind of looks a little traditional.
Oh,
so.
It was a funny scene. Do I have it?
Yeah, Tracy's the kind of the spitfire in all this.
Well, she's the blunt American, right?
Yep, the blunt American say like we got to do something, and everyone else is like, well, you can't prove. It's like, well, I'm going to, damn it.
Or she say something like, I know all of you have thought that I'm too outspoken or something like that, or you've said I'm too outspoken because.
Which is
well, that's a big cultural difference between America and Japan, isn't it? Over there, it's the nail that sticks out gets hammered down. Yeah. Over here, it's more like, a little louder. That's the complaint other countries have about us, isn't it?
Well, you can
speak our mind too freely.
Well, you can kind of see that in because she's like a member of her school's activist club to save the dogs.
I don't think that was an activist club. I believe it was a newspaper.
Was it? Oh, that's right. It's a newspaper.
School newspaper.
Yeah, but they were trying to prove this.
Yeah.
And, well, she's more trying to prove it than anything, and everyone else is kind of, like, doubting her.
Well, I think she was upset about having to get rid of her dog, but I'm not really sure why her dog was with her in Japan, unless it was her,
She knew someone over there?
Their dog or something,
Yeah.
What's it called? The host parents.
Right.
Host parents' dog.
Yeah. Because they have like a few great scenes where they cite the fact that they all had lost dogs and they're all like fighting for their dogs.
Yeah.
But yeah, like she's like the kind of the outspoken one who's trying to prove it, and then you have kind of like the comparison to that. There's this silent hacker in the group.
The hacker was really funny.
Who they keep darting back to him every now and then because he does play a crucial role in the film.
The looks on his face is you've gotta see it all the time. It's priceless.
He's kind of the silent warrior, if you will, through all this. So yeah, there's so much. I feel like you gotta have to watch, like with all Anderson films, you gotta watch it like a few more times just to catch every little nook and cranny. There's probably tons of little stuff he's hidden in like the backgrounds there on Trash Island to look at.
Yeah.
I love the fact that in this future it seems like the only real money they've put into for upgrading technology is with a dog translator, drones, and robotic dogs. Like, that's it. That's all that's improved.
Yeah.
Which is it's kind of weird. It kind of paints this little interesting picture of the future, I guess. So that's how Anderson wants it to be. So there you go. We have two films based on like different versions of the future.
Dropped frames detected.
What?
Are you guys having problems? I just got this warning.
Drop
frames detected. Your stream quality may be affected.
Uh-oh.
No.